All right, so I'm going to pass it over to Jessica and let her get started. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Eddington. I'm currently the marketing manager here at the college, but for the first 10 years I was here, I was the faculty member for media design. And in about 2008, 2010, we had this requirement that all of our course content had to be made accessible. So I understand the stress that you are under and that you have to do all of this stuff for your classes. But being on the other side of that, I hope that I can encourage you that once you learn how to do this, it becomes just as easy as you normally would create a document or a PowerPoint, if not sometimes faster and easier. And you know that your document is now accessible to not only people with disabilities, but it makes it better for everybody who's looking at your document or your PowerPoint presentation or your digital materials. So I only have about 20 minutes in this presentation. So Jen's going to keep track for me and let me know when, so I don't take all of Troy's time. What I've been asked to do is just kind of give you a general overview of how to make documents and PowerPoints accessible. I also have a whole tutorial video series on documents, and I'm creating one in presentations. So as soon as I have that done, Jen will send that out to you guys so that you can slow it down, pause it, look at the topics you want to look at that you don't know about. So just know that that's coming. So if it feels like I'm going really fast through this, it's just because it's a general overview, but please feel free to ask questions in the chat. Okay. So I am going to share my screen and I'm going to go over with you how to make your document and presentation accessible before you take it into Yuja, which is going to check it for you. And Troy's going to explain how to do that. So hopefully, can you guys all see my screen? And it shows two different documents.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So I created these fake lecture notes over here on Pearl Harbor, and this is currently not accessible. If I go to the review tab in Microsoft Word and check for accessibility, it's going to bring up the accessibility assistant that goes over that there are some hard to read text contrast areas. There's a missing table header. There's use of merged split cells. But often Word doesn't actually cover all of the things that you actually need to do to make it accessible. So I'm going to close that for right now just because we have limited screen space and start talking through with you what I would do to make this document accessible. One of the resources we'll send out to you is this one-page document accessibility checklist that I've created that goes over all the things you need to check before you can consider your document done. If you have done this correctly, hopefully when you put it into Yuja, it'll pass with 100% and you shouldn't have to worry about it. So when I'm in Microsoft Word, if I go to the Home tab, you'll see that there's this Styles panel, and it has all these different heading 1, heading 2, title, subtitle, etc. And the very first thing I'm actually going to do is open up a pre-made template that I've already created the proper styles, and this is available to you guys as well. So I'm going to copy all of this. And the reason why I do that is because you can see this only has heading 1 and heading 2, and it has this title, which we don't want you to use. So I'm going to copy this and put it into my new document where I have a logo and all kinds of text or a little bit of text. You could just delete that and I'm going to paste it in. It looks exactly the same, but now you can see that I have heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, heading 5, because sometimes like in science classes, we have big outlines, and you could see that that title style isn't there. So the first thing I usually do when I come to a document is I go into the info area and I must add a title in this info area. This is important because screen readers for people who have vision disabilities or even cognitive disabilities will read out the title properties of a document so that they can identify this document between all the other documents they might have on their drive or computer. So this one is Pearl Harbor Lecture Notes. So it's the exact same title as you have directly in the document. You just need to make sure to add it here. With that, I'm going to change this to not just be, this was just created at 48-point impact font because I want it to look like a title, but screen readers actually need to have this indicated as a heading 1 because that heading 1 tells a screen reader this is like the actual title of the document on this front end space. So you can change the styles if you want to at a later date, if you wanted to make it smaller, bigger, whatever. But the heading 1 is important. It's called a tag. And behind the scenes, the computer reads that tag and knows that this is the title of this document. Okay. So you have to have that on here. In addition, you should be breaking up if you have a lot of pages, 2 or more pages, you should hopefully, sorry. Did somebody have a question? Okay. So if you have 2 or more pages, you should hopefully be breaking things into sections. So right now, this background information, I'm going to make it a heading 2. Now the heading 1, you should only have 1 time on the page, but heading 2, you can have multiple times. So if I said this is background information, and then what were the Japanese Navy targeting, that would be a heading 2 as well. But under here, you can see all the different types of ships. So there's aircraft carrier, battleship, and destroyer. Those are all subtopics of what were the Japanese Navy targeting. So I'm going to come in here and make these all heading 3s. So I'm going to highlight each of these and make them heading 3. This heading structure is very, very important for being able to skim a document, not just for people with disabilities who have screen readers and other technology that need it, but even for sighted or people without disabilities, it makes it easier to break up that content so that they can skim through it. In addition, when I go to view and I go to, where is the navigation pane? By adding these headings, we have this easy way to navigate long documents and jump to the sections that we need. With headings, you should not have them out of order. So you shouldn't have a heading 4 following a heading 2 because it expects to see a heading 3 between heading 2 and heading 4. So when I jump back to another heading like the aftermath, this is a heading 2 again, that's fine, but I can't then, I can't then add a heading 4 after that. The next thing we're going to talk about is alt text. So this map, if I right click it and choose view alt text, this is AI generated content and it's not really telling me what people should be seeing with this map. So this is where you're going to describe what somebody should be seeing. So imagine you're talking about this picture to somebody on the phone with you and they can't see it. What is it that they should be getting out of this picture? So this one is saying location of Pearl Harbor indicated on the island of, is it Oahu? Well, I'm going to say that, but just know I might be lying. Okay. So
it's Oahu.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. So this is a proper alt tag. Now, this one, do you see how it has this figure 1 caption that has the description? Because this has a caption, you can click on this and do mark as decorative because it already has what you would put in the alt text in detail right near the picture. Now, if this caption for some reason, which wouldn't make sense, but was really far away from this picture, then you should add this same content to the alt text in here. So just to be safe, you could, if you wanted to, put it both, but just know that somebody with a screen reader now, it's going to read both the alt text and the caption to them. So it's not a great solution. So I'm just going to choose mark as decorative because we have that with it. In terms of images, I know that I personally like to have text wrap around it, but that is not supported with accessible technology yet. So unfortunately, you do have to choose inline with text, and then you do have to do something like that. So just be aware of that. When it does that for these kinds of things, oops, Jen, how much time do I have?
You still have 10 minutes.
Okay, cool. So if I do inline with text, you can see that the caption that was created when I right-clicked and did insert caption is actually a text box that's also floating. And so that can't happen as well. So generally what you would say is pictured, and then you would paste that content in there. So I'm going to go ahead and change that back to normal text. Maybe make it italic since it's a little bit different than this information, and then delete this. Okay. Another thing I want you to be aware of is that if you're using bullets, make sure you're actually using these bullet features up here and not just typing them, because that doesn't help with assistive technology. But if it is a list and it has to have an order like step 1, step 2, step 3, then you should be using the numbered list. But this is just listing the 4 of the big ships that were sunk. And so because this has no particular order, then we should actually be using what we call a bulleted or unordered list. Okay. When it comes to tables, it's really important because a screen reader is going to read from the top down and left to right, and it's going to read each cell. It's really important that we don't merge cells. So if you have to merge, or if you have merged cells, you're going to just have to repeat whatever it was merged for. Or in this instance, because this is the title of the table, I'm actually going to, this is always, okay. I'm actually going to type that title here and get rid of this table row. So delete row. Now this is part of under aftermath, so I have to remember to use a heading 3. This, you can see it's very hard to see. It's white text on the light blue shading. So contrast really, really matters, color contrast. If it's a little bit hard for you to read, then it's hard for everybody to read and you have to fix it. So in this instance, I like to have that shading. So I'm going to go to table design and change that shading to a darker color so that it's very easy to see. So obviously light text should be on a dark background and dark text should be on a light background, not mid-tone and mid-tone or light on light or dark on dark. Okay. So I believe I have this as an assignment and lecture notes. We'll finish that out. Also, screen readers or other assistive technologies do not like unnecessary spaces because the user that's listening to it then tends to think, oh, is this table over or what's wrong with this table? What am I not seeing? So I'm going to get rid of all of these rows that do not have any content. All right. And I'm going to make all of my headings look like headings because that's going to be easier for everybody to read. So these are the totals of the casualties of the US service people. And in addition to this, when you go to table design, you have to indicate that it has a header row if you have a header row. If it has a first column of headers, you should do first column. If it has a total or last row, like it does here, then you do total row. And if it even has a last column that are considered headers or a total column, then you would indicate. So for this table, I actually need to indicate all 4 of those. Again, this is going to help them be able to skim through things properly or repeat any headings that as needed. Okay. Last, or actually, yeah, probably last, for this link right here, you should not do something like watch this video and write a response comparing. You should say, watch the video. I can't remember what it's called. Video name. Pretend I know what it's called. I have it somewhere in my notes, but I'm trying to rush. Okay. The reason why you want to do that is because then they know what the name of it is. So if the link is broken or it gets moved, they can maybe search YouTube for that same video. In addition, you should include it. Pretend these are being sent out digitally to students, but one student prefers to print it. Well, now the link is not usable for that one student. So what we need to do is for the link, I'm going to go to, where's the edit? Well, for some reason it's not doing this. Maybe it's just the font. Let's see. Hyperlink. Yeah, edit hyperlink. So I must have just copied it, but it must have just copied the formatting, but didn't keep the link. But pretend that link was still there. And you're going to need to, in parentheses, put the full URL. And if you put space after it and it makes it a link, then you're gonna need to remove that hyperlink. So this should just make it one clickable link. And the reason why we do that is if both of these were two links, then the screen reader has to read the whole thing out as a link. So we only want to have one link, but if they print it, then we want to make sure that they can still type that link in to be able to get to that video. So I believe those are the basics of making a document accessible. If I review this and go to the accessibility tab, I don't have hard to read text contrast. I don't have merged cells. It looks like I've passed everything. That doesn't mean that I've truly passed everything. I need to make sure to save this and run it through Yuja. That's what we're requiring instructors to do. And Troy will explain how to use Yuja after this, okay? So in terms of PowerPoint, Jen, how much time do I have left?
You're good. You have about 10 minutes.
Still? Okay.
Yeah, you could go over a little. You're good.
Okay. So in terms of PowerPoint, all of the same things apply. So creating links in PowerPoint is the same way as you would need to create them. Well, in PowerPoint for a link, you can just have a clickable link. But if you had lecture notes, you would want to paste out that URL so that they could use that. For this one, for text contrast, it's a little bit harder because if I go to review and check for accessibility, which you always need to have open in PowerPoint because then it gives you all of these options. It doesn't tell me that there's any error with the hard to read text contrast when clearly that is an error. And it's because I'm using a custom background that has like the billowing smoke from the Pearl Harbor attack. So in this, just be aware that if you go to the design area, you'll see that there are variants where you can choose, okay, I'm gonna have a dark background, so I wanna make all the text light, or I'm gonna have a light background, so make all the text dark. You should choose that before you start designing the background. And the reason why it's not changing this text for me is because this is one that I clicked on and actually made black so I could see it black. In addition, when you're choosing a PowerPoint and you browse for themes, make sure, I don't know how you do that on a PC, I'm a Mac person. Well, wherever you go and you can see all the themes, there's a search area and you want to choose accessible. And then that way you are getting a theme that is accessible. I didn't want to do that for this theme because they didn't have a history theme and I wanted to show you this contrast error. Like I said, sometimes it doesn't do things correctly. So I'm going to manually make sure that this is correct by making it white. All right. This title of the slide is considered your heading 1 for each slide. You must have it for each slide. So as you can see over here, this is saying it's missing a slide title, and it's saying that on certain slides, I don't have a title. But this looks like I have a title, so I don't, I could be thinking, well, what is wrong with this? So this is where you can add a slide title, but actually I wanted to show you in the desktop view, if you go to outline, you can see that some of the slides have titles and 2, 3, and 4 do not have a title. And so we need to make sure that they do have a title because again, if this is a 30-page biology, chemistry, whatever PowerPoint, and I'm a student and I need to find the specific page that's talking about such and such topic or the specific slide, this is going to help with assistive technology for them to be able to skim it. So in here, I already have a text box that I created that would be considered the title of this slide. So how do I convert this to a title? Well, you have to have the accessibility tab open, which is only available if you have the accessibility assistant active. And then when you do that, you should be able to see this slide title. And then you could choose to add a hidden slide title if you didn't want to actually have it showing, but you needed it, or you can choose set a slide title for whatever you have selected. So now you can see that on 2, we have that title. So I would need to come over here to 3 and 4, and I would actually, which I'm not going to keep both of these, but I would need to make those slide titles as well. In addition, when you have pictures like this that have text on them, you need to make sure that this just says related image, and that doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to say aerial view of Pearl Harbor, and you need to put all the text that's on there. So generally, we prefer that you don't have images with text, but in this case, it helps us indicate what areas of Pearl Harbor. So we're going to start and say, showing Hickam Field, C channel, and I'm not going to type all that just for time, but you would put all of these labels within that alt text. Okay. Now, in relation to these two slides, one thing that I wanted to talk to you about is, first of all, it's always going to be better for people if you have all of your speaking notes in the actual speaker presentation notes area and not on the slide. It makes a better presentation because then you're not just reading a paragraph that people could be reading on their own and they're listening to you. But imagine somebody is absent from your class and you only had a slide like this. This is really helpful for them to know what they missed if they weren't at your actual presentation. This one is a lot harder. They could just be reading this instead of listening to you. And they might, that forces you by taking this out to have a better presentation, offer more facts, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this slide because we don't want that. And we prefer this one. Well, I don't know if that did that or if it worked. In addition, I wanted to show you something called sans serif. Fonts matter, especially fonts that are really hard to read. So these ones are all good. They're all readable. But let's say it was Comic Sans or a script font. Don't use those in any presentation or a document. Now, if you needed to for like a 2-word title, you wanted to have a cool Western looking font or a war looking font, and it's still easy to read, that's not a big deal. But specifically for PowerPoint, we have found through studies that not we, like MCC didn't do a study, but like the world, found that sans serif fonts, these fonts that are very clean lines, are a lot easier to read digitally than serif fonts, which is like this Times New Roman where you see these little flourishes and thick and thin lines. So specifically for PowerPoint, we recommend that you use a sans serif font. So that could be like Arial, it could be Franklin Gothic Book, any of those really clean line, really easy to read and legible, okay? So in terms of media that you add, notice that I added the video right in there, which you can do, but I also have a title on there and I have the full video URL in case that is needed. It is your job to make sure that if you're using audio or video, that there are at least closed captioning or video descriptions, any of that content. So if you didn't have that on this Pearl Harbor video, then you would need to find some other video that covered the same content that did have the closed captioning. Same thing with a table. As we talked about in Word, I would get rid of all of these blank spaces. I would make headings. I would have to come up here to the screen sharing is in my way. I would come up here to table design and say there's a header row, first column, total, and last column. And you see how PowerPoint already tries to add some of that design. With this, font size is really important. Sorry, I keep doing that because I'm on a Mac and you go to File for a Mac. We recommend that you keep at least 18-point font or higher and try not to overcrowd each slide with too much information. In terms of color, you can't have meaning by color alone. So if we're saying this is the activity that we wanted students to do in groups in the class and they have to match the cause with the effect, and we're saying the causes are in red and the effects are in green. Well, if I come to accessibility and I inspect without color, you can see that somebody who has a color issue, even 1 in 4 men are colorblind, and it affects some of the red and some of the green spectrum depending on the type of color blindness. So you have to be careful that you don't have meaning just related to color. So if instead I came here, this one, you could tell the cause and effect because I've labeled them cause and effect. And if I turn on the color, you can still have the color, but I can still see it without the color, okay? However, this one being all these like text boxes and they're grouped together is gonna cause a lot more errors in my accessibility that I'd have to fix. So just keep it simple. This is what I would do. I would just keep it simple. There's no color and I just have cause, effect, cause, effect. This is gonna make it simpler for you and simpler for all the students seeing this, and they still understand which ones are the cause and effect. So I believe, I don't know, I think if I go to accessibility, I didn't go over everything, like the merged and split cells, so it won't tell me everything. It tells me there is a duplicate side title. It doesn't like that. So if we did truly have three different cause and effect slides, you'd need to indicate the difference between the three, or that this one is a continue, or two of three, three of three, etc., to make differences. The reading order is a big deal. And the reading order is saying what order it's going to read it in. So if I go to accessibility and I go reading order pane, it's going to read the online media first, which is the video. Then it's going to read the URL. Then it's going to read the title. But we probably want it to be title, media, URL. So I'm going to rearrange this to move that up there. So now it's going to go title, media, URL. It determines the reading order based on how you created the slide. So unless you perfectly create it in the order that you want it to read, then usually every slide needs to have its reading order checked. So that's it for how the basics for how to make a Word document and a PowerPoint document accessible. And then Troy's going to talk to you how to put it into Yuja to have it double check it and give you videos on how to fix things that might have went wrong. But I encourage you, if there is an error, come and fix it in here so that you don't have to keep fixing it every time you export that or put it into a D2L shell. So that's it for me.
Thanks, Jessica. We did have one question in the chat. I'm going to ask you real fast. Are you aware if it's pretty similar in like Google Sheets or
Yes.
slides?
Yes, it's the same in there. You just have to look for where it might be. I believe I have a Google, like if I open up this in Google Sheets, when I click on this, I don't know if it's not letting me because I don't think I'm signed in. But if you click on this, there will be that toolbar up here, and there's like a paragraph in it, and that's where it'll say you can change to heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. And the same thing with creating links, and you can edit tables, etc. So they're pretty similar. You just have to find where each of those features are.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. All right, we'll turn it over to Troy.
Hi, everybody. My name is Troy McKee. I'm the Director of Academic Technology. I'm also the LMS Administrator for D2L here at MCC. Ryan Burmeister is also here. He works in my department, so he'll be helping out as we go through this. So what I'm going to demo for you today is a new product we have called Yuja Panorama. It's made by Yuja. I just want to clarify, when we talk about Yuja, that is our video capture and captioning platform. We're going to talk about Panorama. Even though it's made by the same company, it's a different product. So today we're going to talk about Panorama. So Panorama, like Jessica said, is an accessibility checker. It's going to help you look over your documents and help you identify issues that they might have. So I'm going to share screen here real quick. All right, everybody seeing the MCC website there? Great.
Yes.
Slide this down here for now. Get out of the way. All right, so I'm going to sign into my MCC here real quick. And I'm going to show you how to access Yuja a couple of different ways. The first way I'm going to show you to access Yuja, or I'm sorry, Panorama, is through my MCC. You can access it through my MCC, or you can access it through D2L. And I'm going to show you both ways because there are reasons why you may want to use it one way versus another. So in this case, where we're logging into it through my MCC directly, this is where we are going to upload documents in case we needed them and we didn't necessarily want to put them into D2L. So a good example of this would be if you wanted to send an email out to your class with a document attached to it, you would come into my MCC and you would upload it into Panorama this way rather than uploading it into D2L if you didn't want it in D2L, okay? So I'm going to scroll down here and we're looking for this faculty tools channel, okay? If I scroll down, the second one from the bottom is Yuja Panorama Accessibility Checker. If I click on that this first time, and maybe every time afterwards, just depends, it's going to come up, it's going to say, welcome to Yuja Panorama. How do you want to sign in? We're going to leave that on SSO, and we're going to log in using SSO authentication. If you click on that, it's just going to pull your credentials from MyMCC. You don't need to put your password in a second time. It's just going to go ahead and load it, okay? And what we're worried about is up here at the top, the document hub. So what we can do here is we can upload documents off of the hard drive of our computer and load them into Panorama. Panorama will then run an accessibility check on those documents. So I've got 3 documents here, and you'll notice we've got these little guys in the corner. 2 of these have little triangles, and one of them has a little green hexagon, right? If we click on that, we are going to get an accessibility format, or I'm sorry, an alternate formats menu. This is going to be similar to what we're going to see in D2L. And if a student were to see this in D2L, they're only going to see this bottom portion here. Okay, they're not going to see this accessibility report, but they're going to see this alternate formats menu. What Panorama will do is it will take your initial document and it will convert it for these other formats if a student needs it. So they could download the source file, or they could download a PDF version if it's not a PDF. There's a couple of different things here. A plain text file, they can download it as an audio podcast that it will generate. There's some language translations. There's also Braille formats here. So you don't have to provide all these things. Panorama will convert it for those users automatically. But because you are the owner of this document, you are also going to get this accessibility report at the top once it's had time to run it. And I will caution you that when you upload a document, if it's real big, it may take a while for it to come back with this piece. It's not instantaneous. So just be prepared for that. And what this is telling me is that this Word document that I've uploaded scores a 99%, and it has 1 issue. If I click on that, it's going to come up. It's going to say, you know, whatever it's got with the document. Over here on the side, it's going to list what the issues are. And if I click on it, it'll highlight where it's at. In this case, the document's missing a title. And there's a place where I can hit Fix Issue that will allow me to fix it. If I do that here, it's going to save it here in Panorama. And if I needed it somewhere, I would need to download a new version of that. Okay. You're also going to see where it says this document is missing a title, Learn More. On each of these, you're going to see Learn More. If you click on Learn More, it's going to take you to a page that's going to explain to you how to fix whatever the issue is. Okay. And Panorama knows if it's a Word doc, it's going to give you instructions for how to fix it in Office 365. I'm going to show you here in a minute if it's a PDF, how to address those issues. It'll know that you need to do those in Acrobat. It knows the difference. It's also going to give you a video here.
The document is
You may be getting audio, you may not.
Missing title issues. Titles ensure that your document.
But that's a narrated video, and it's going to tell you how to fix whatever the issue is. Okay. So let's jump out of here real quick. And let's look at another document I've got here. So here's another document that we've uploaded. This document is a PDF, but it says accessibility report, only 46%, and there are 30 issues with it. So if I click on that, it's going to tell me all of the issues we've got throughout this document. Now, here's the thing. If you're making a Word doc, you're probably not going to see as many issues as this. This particular document is actually a scanned page that we then ran through another tool to generate the text. So we took a picture with no words, ran it through another tool to generate words, and then brought it in here. It's got a lot of issues because this wasn't a document we created the correct way, right? But again, you'll see it's got instructions for each of these. And if we were to go through with any of these, you're going to find those. Okay. Now I'm going to sign out of my MCC here real quick. And I'm going to show you how this works on the D2L side, because that's a little different. Unfortunately, I have to use different accounts, so bear with me here for a moment. All right, so here we are in D2L. This should be more familiar for everybody. What we run into, even though that document hub is a great checker for individual documents, is there are parts of D2L that we cannot upload into that document hub, right? We can't check discussion posts. We can't check quiz questions because those live within D2L. They don't live as separate documents. But Panorama integrates with D2L, so that's not a problem. We have those same tools in D2L. So I'm going to click on an example course here. And the first thing that you need to do in order to make Panorama work within D2L is we need to download the browser extension. Okay, that's how it works in D2L. So I'm going to go over to More Tools. I'm going to go to Panorama. And what you'll notice is this is going to drop me to the same place that I would have gotten to had I gone through my MCC. Okay. But up here in the corner, I'm going to click where it has my name, and I'm going to click on User Setup. And what it's going to have for me here is it's going to say, is this your first time using Panorama Digital Accessibility Platform? And if so, it's going to ask you to install an extension. So you would click on Install Extension. Now, I've already got one here. I'm going to remove it real quick just so I can show you what it looks like. But we would click on Install Extension, and this is going to take you to the store page for whatever browser you are using. It's taking me to the Chrome Web Store because I'm using Chrome. Firefox has one. Microsoft has one. Apple has one. It doesn't matter. When you click on that, it's going to take you to the page for your particular browser. I'm going to click, in this case, on Add to Chrome. It may say Install. It may say a couple of different things. It says, are you sure? We're going to say yes. It's going to think for a minute. The other thing that's nice about this is you don't need admin privileges, at least on the MCC computers, to install this. Because it's a browser extension, it'll just let you install it. So we're going to jump back to this page where we got that extension. And the second thing we want to do is we want to do connect to the extension. We click connect. It's going to think for a minute, and if everything worked, you're going to get this message that says successfully activated the Panorama browser extension. You are good to go at this point. You will now be able to use Panorama in this browser. Now, keep in mind, we installed this extension on this browser on this machine, and it is unique, okay? So if you were to use this same computer, but instead I was to use another browser the next time I logged in, it would not have the extension. You would need to download it for that extension. Same rule applies if you move from one computer to another. You would need to install the extension on the new computer that you're on, okay? That makes sense to everybody? Okay, so let's jump back here, and now we'll start using it in our course. So I'm here on my course, and what you'll notice is, even starting here with the announcements, we have the little guy that tells us what our score is. When we click on that, we get that same alternate formats menu. It's got our accessibility report, and then below that, it has what the students can get for alternate formats. So students can download Panorama and they can install it. Again, they will see everything here underneath where it says accessibility report. Let's take a look in content. And what I want you to see is when we click on content, content is going to load, and it's going to take a few seconds for that little guy to load next to the name of each piece of content, okay? Don't be surprised about that. It'll take longer than you expect. We click on content. Notice I don't have the little guy. It's going to think here for a couple of seconds, and then they load. So what's happening there is D2L is loading as normal. It's coming up, and then the browser extension has to go out, and it has to do its piece before the little guys can load, okay? And if your students have this, they're going to see a little guy with a blue circle, okay? So again, I've got some examples here. We've got this sample syllabus. If I click on the little guy, we're going to get that same alternate formats menu. If we click on the accessibility report, this looks just exactly like it did in the document hub. And we've got how we can fix some of our items over here on the side. Most of these, you will be able to click on Fix Issue. You will be able to save those changes, and it will save directly into D2L. You don't have to download it and re-upload it most of the time. Now, that is not always true. There may be some issues with your documents that are things that for whatever reason, Panorama cannot fix. So if that's the case, you're going to get the little learn more, but you're not going to get the fix issue button. So this document has a couple of little minor things. When we click on it, it'll highlight where the problems are. Like this one, there's some text on here it doesn't like. That this text is in this light blue color because if somebody has trouble with color contrast, they may not be able to read that. That's one of those things where you're probably going to want all black text on white backgrounds, right? But that's what that's warning us about. So let's look here. We've got another one here. That's a PDF document. So this is scoring 0%, but there's only one issue. And this is something that we commonly see in PDF files that get uploaded. So what happens is if you have Adobe Reader installed on your machine and it's connected to Word, there will be a button at the top that says that you can export it as an Adobe PDF. And if you do that, it's going to export it with all of the formatting that it needs. If you, however, go up to File in Word and do Save As Adobe PDF, that is going to save it, but it is going to strip all of the formatting out of it. In which case, the warning that we typically get on those is that the PDF is untagged because it has stripped all of the tags on the back end that do all that stuff that Jessica talked about before when a screen reader gets to it, right? All of that information that it needs for that screen reader gets stripped out. So this is saying, hey, your PDF is untagged. If we go over here, it says your PDF is untagged, learn more. And you'll notice there is not a button here to fix this issue. This is one of those things that you must download the file and make the corrections before you can re-upload it, okay? But again, we've got the instructions, so we can click on Learn More, and it's going to tell us how to fix it. Now, the nice thing is when you're using Adobe Acrobat Pro, which we all have access to as college employees, it has an auto-tagging feature. So really, all of this means is all you have to do is download this, load it into an Acrobat Pro, run the auto-tagger, resave it, and then re-upload it. It's not a lot of work. It's just one thing that has to be fixed. And again, there's instructions here on how to do it.
The PDF is untagged. How to resolve untagged PDF issues. Untagged PDF issues occur when PDFs are generated from various file formats without selecting the Enable Tag setting.
So I won't play that whole thing, but that explains how to fix it. Keep in mind that you need Adobe Acrobat Pro for that, not just regular Adobe Acrobat. So check to see which version you've got. We do have access to it. If you have any questions, you can contact our IT department. They can help you with that. And that's how that piece of Panorama works. What you will see is that this format menu and these scores will follow throughout everything that you've got in your course. If we're using discussions, I click on that. We're going to wait here for a second for it to load. And we see the little guys. Okay. So it'll check your discussions. Same thing with quiz questions. Same thing with the assignment tool where we've got instructions. I don't really have instructions set up on these, but it's going to check all of those for accessibility. Let's see exactly what it shows on the quiz side. It's not loading on that one. Wonder if I have to be on each one. That may be. It may not be done processing this too. That will happen sometimes. So I'm going to jump back here. With quiz questions, if you have used the quiz editor, almost every, oh yeah, there we go. See, now it's loading this. It just needed to get that process started. So if you use the quiz editor in D2L and all of your questions are text, they are probably accessible. If, however, you added an image and you wanted like on a multiple choice or maybe on a matching or something, to have a student identify things that are on an image, those need to have alt text, right? Just like Jessica was talking about. Those will be the kind of things that will get flagged by Panorama on quiz questions, okay? The other thing that we've got down here in the corner, there's a little guy. When we click on that, the web accessibility menu, if we click on that, it gives us a summary. It tells us all the things that it's checking for, and it will even let users make adjustments. Now, if students have it, they are also going to have this. It's going to have the formats. It's going to have all that stuff. So that's just another piece of the tool. Probably more useful for your students than for you directly, but it's another piece that's there. So we've covered how to upload directly into the document hub so that you don't have to upload everything into D2L in case there's anything you're sending out that you don't want to put in D2L. We've covered how to access it in D2L, in content, in announcements, in discussions, in quizzes there. And you've also seen how to install that browser extension and that it may take a few seconds for that browser extension to load after pages have. So just be prepared for that. Does anybody have any questions about Panorama? No? Okay. Well, if you do, you can always contact Ryan or I. We're happy to answer any questions you've got.
Thanks, Troy. So we had a couple questions in the chat. One of them was related to Acrobat Pro. I did put in the contact information for our IT department who can help you get that downloaded. I wanted to let you all know too that I will follow up the training with the email that has all of our contact information, links to the resources, plus this video that you can reference as well. Jessica has created a really nice repository of individualized and some overview of resources too that you guys will have access to look at. Is there any other general questions? I did see one just came in the chat related to Excel files. Excel files are probably the trickiest file, I think, to make accessible. Jessica, do you have anything you want to say related to that?
In terms of Excel, we took a training on that because that's the piece that I don't really work with a lot. And what we found, it was a national training through WebAIM accessibility standards. And you can make parts of Excel accessible. You can do some helpful things like not have empty sheets, not have empty rows and columns, and to make things color contrast and easy to read font. Some of the things that we've already talked about in this training, you would do in Excel. But unfortunately, all the advanced kind of formula, chart making, etc., the software hasn't caught up with us yet. And so you can't actually make Excel spreadsheets 100% accessible. They are working on it and adding tools. I mean, I've been doing this for a year and a half, all of these trainings. And since then, I think we've had 3 major updates in Microsoft Word, and they keep adding things all the time, or Microsoft Office, I mean. But as of now, make your Excel files as easy to read as possible, but just know that you kind of get a free pass until we figure that out.
And Jessica, would we recommend that they put a note on those documents saying that we realize this document isn't accessible?
Yeah.
So if you need help, please contact the instructor.
Yeah, so usually if you have an exception to the rule, which usually all Excel files are an exception to the rule. And for some people, like we have a teacher here that teaches Spanish. So she creates documents that are both in English and Spanish, and it has to be that way, but accessibility requires that you choose one language. And so it always throws an error out for her. So what we recommend is when there are exceptions to those rules, you usually talk to your lead faculty or supervisor just to make sure that it's okay that that stays an exception because you have a good reason for it. And then you put a statement on there that says, this document is not fully accessible. Please contact the instructor if you need assistance. If somebody contacts you and they need something like the links aren't clickable for me or something like that and you can fix it, great. If it's somebody who does have like a disability and they need somebody, like they can't move the mouse the way they need to move the mouse. That's why you have in your syllabus the ADA statement that says if you have a document or a disability, go to our ADA coordinator, and that way there will be reasonable accommodations and there are funds to help with those reasonable accommodations. So at a base level, you guys are doing a good faith effort to make sure your materials are as accessible as possible. But if somebody truly does have a disability, we are still hoping and asking them to go to the ADA coordinator so that they can get the real like help they need, whether it's an assistant or a tool or whatever the case may be. So just know that that's still in effect.
Thank you, Jessica. Does anyone else have any questions for us? I want to be cognizant of your time. Well, we appreciate y'all being here. I think Troy, Jessica, Ryan, and I'll stay on for a little bit just to make sure nobody has any one-on-one questions for us. Otherwise, thank you for being here, and please watch for an email with all of this information.
Jen, we had one more question.
Oh, yeah.
So Roxy's asking that do all colleges have that office? So for Colorado Online, would she still come to us for support or to Colorado Online or?
So that's a good question. You should still have access to it. I would start with our IT department, and if they feel like they have to send you to the CO Online IT, then they will. I do think the Dans could probably get you started though.
No, actually, I was asking about the ADA office to send
Oh,
the students to.
yeah. Yeah,
So
okay, I
they said,
apologize.
that's okay. I didn't say which office. I just
Yeah.
said office. I'm typing too fast.
No. So we are working, I know that Colorado Online is working on having a general space to outline what those resources are, and they've implemented a few new roles to kind of help funnel those students into the appropriate resources,
Okay.
ADA being one of them. You said
Okay.
you teach a business. Is Eric your dean or Christiana?
Eric,
Eric.
accounting, yeah,
Yep.
business.
Go ahead and send Eric an email, and he will connect you to who that person should be.
Okay, all right.
Jen, for
Thank
Colorado Online, do they, I don't know, so I'm just guessing, but do they find out what a student's home college is and then refer them to that college's ADA, or do they have an ADA coordinator like they did for CCC Online?
So I think that that's all in the revamp. They were working
Okay.
through what that process looks like. Same with like the
Okay.
D2L help. If you guys noticed, sometimes they were
It's
referring
different.
them to the home college, sometimes they were taking them. They have created some new roles to kind of be a gatekeeper to that, and I'm not sure where ADA is lying.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, very, very tricky with those classes.
It is very tricky, and we are working to try to help make that better. So please keep letting your deans know those barriers you're running into.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.